If hard work creates wealth, why aren't the hardest workers rich? I mean, really think about it for a second. The folks doing the absolute most grueling, physically exhausting, time-consuming labor on the planet, they're almost never the ones achieving true financial freedom. So what's the disconnect? Why is that happening?
Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking a fascinating framework called the Architect of Wealth, a guide to strategic prosperity. The source material we're diving into totally dismantles that exhausting old myth of hustle culture. Instead, it builds a completely new framework for getting to financial freedom. We aren't going to look at wealth as a lottery ticket or some happy accident today. We're treating it like a deliberate architectural build. We're going to fundamentally reshape how we view our time, our skills, and our money.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's the blueprint for our build today. We'll start with the hard work myth, then move to the wealth mindset, value creation, systems and leverage, investing and compounding, and finally, wrap it up with a 10-year blueprint. We're going layer by layer, starting with clearing the site.
First up, the hard work myth. This is where we clear the site.
There is a massive, fundamental difference between traditional hard work and strategic smart work. Look, hard work, without a strategy, literally locks you into a linear equation. You put in an hour, you get paid for an hour. It's basically a really exhausting hamster wheel, and it almost universally leads to burnout. Why? Because your earning capacity is permanently capped by your own physical limits. There are only so many hours in a day. Smart work, on the other hand, breaks that entire equation. It produces exponential results because it relies on leverage. It's all about designing a sustainable engine that keeps running even when you step entirely away from the controls.
Moving on to phase 2, the wealth mindset. Before we build systems, we have to lay down the right foundation.
Now, to rewire your mindset, you absolutely must grasp this core difference. Active income is trading your time for money. Think of it like being the bartender, mixing drinks all night long. The second you stop pouring, the money stops flowing. Passive income, however, is earnings fundamentally decoupled from the direct time you spend. In this scenario, you aren't the bartender, you're the person who owns the bar. True wealth architecture requires shifting your focus away from just trying to maximize your active hourly rate and instead aggressively building vehicles that generate passive, decoupled income.
What's really interesting here is how wealthy individuals operate on a daily basis. They rely heavily on long-term thinking and delayed gratification. They are perfectly willing to grind for years on a system that pays literally nothing today because they know it's going to pay out exponentially tomorrow. They're constantly scanning for opportunities, obsessing over continuous learning, and above all, they take extreme personal responsibility for their financial outcomes. They don't just react to the economy, they adapt to it.
Which brings us to the third phase, value creation, or framing the structure of your wealth.
The most striking takeaway from the source material is honestly this incredibly simple truth. Money follows value. Wealth isn't created by taking, it's created by providing solutions. If you want to generate capital quickly, you need to identify high-value problems. Look for customer pain points that are costing them time, money, or stress, and then go solve them effectively. If you can achieve product-market fit by delivering a stellar solution, the market will gladly hand over its money.
And this perfectly illustrates why your choice of business model totally dictates your scalability and profit potential. Take freelancing, for example. It's a great way to start because the startup costs are low, but the scalability is also very low. You're still trapped trading time for money. On the flip side, things like software as a service or SaaS and digital products, you build those once and you can sell them infinitely. They offer high scalability, which is exactly the kind of structural framing you need to support massive wealth.
Now let's move into our fourth phase, systems and leverage. Think of this as installing the utilities in your financial house.
The text highlights leverage as the ultimate multiplier. It's essentially your ability to use technology, capital, or other people's time to multiply the output and impact of your own effort. Look, if you're doing absolutely everything yourself, you have zero leverage. The wealthy obsess over how to use AI, software, and systems to do the heavy lifting for them. It's how they effectively clone their productivity without having to clone their working hours.
Just imagine an engine that never sleeps. Here is a practical look at how an automated workflow can completely replace active human labor. Step 1, automated lead generation pulls in prospects. Step 2, a CRM and automated email sequences quietly nurture those leads in the background. Step 3, AI customer support jumps in to instantly handle basic inquiries. And finally, Step 4, scalable delivery. Maybe it's a digital download or a software login, fulfills the order instantly. The system does all the heavy lifting, you are just there to manage the system.
So the crucial point here is the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle.
When you apply this to time management and wealth, it means that a whopping 80% of your financial returns will come from just 20% of your actions. What that means for us is that our job is to ruthlessly eliminate, delegate, or automate the 80% of busy work. That way, we can focus entirely on the 20% of highly leveraged, deeply strategic activities that actually drive growth.
Next up, the fifth phase, investing and compounding. Let's put a roof on this house.
A classic millionaire asset allocation is all about deploying capital securely but strategically. Typically, 40% is placed in highly diversified index funds for steady, passive growth. Another 40% goes into real estate, which gives you both cash flow and some pretty great tax advantages. Then, the remaining 20% is kept for high-yield, higher-risk ventures or just reinvesting right back into their own businesses. The key takeaway? They absolutely do not leave money sitting in a basic savings account to get eaten alive by inflation. They give every single dollar a job to do.
Now, when you stretch this strategy out over time, you unlock what's often called the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest. In year 1, the growth honestly seems almost discouraging, right? Tiny even. By year 5, you start to see moderate, steady growth. But jump to year 10. That is the exponential leap. That right there represents the money your money has made, making its own money. Patience truly is the ultimate law of wealth. You just have to stay in the game long enough for compounding to do its magic.
Let's enter the final phase of our architectural build, the 10-year blueprint. Time to shift from theory to your master plan.
Listen, becoming a millionaire is definitely not a get-rich-quick weekend project. It is a methodical, decade-long process. Year 1 is purely about learning high-income skills, things like sales, coding, or digital marketing. By year 3, you're transitioning out of freelancing and into building those automated, scalable business systems we talked about. By year 5, your system should be generating excess cash, so your primary job shifts to acquiring assets like stocks and real estate. The framework suggests that if you follow this strictly, by year 10, the math almost guarantees you'll hit total financial freedom.
But quick warning here. Even the best-built house is going to collapse if you completely neglect the maintenance. There are some classic wealth-destroying mistakes that will keep you poor. Chief among them is lifestyle inflation. You know, buying that flashy sports car the exact second you get a raise rather than buying assets. Throw in toxic consumer debt, a lack of consistent investing, and letting the fear of failure paralyze you into procrastination. Do those things, and your new blueprint will absolutely crumble.
Really, the entire core philosophy of our source material boils right down to this powerful idea. Build systems over jobs, ownership over employment, compounding over quick wins. If you can start viewing your daily activities through the lens of that quote, your financial trajectory is going to change forever.
So, we've cleared the site, we laid the foundation, framed the walls, and put on the roof. You've got the blueprint in your hands now. The only question left is, what is the very first piece of your wealth architecture that you are going to build today?